Dad, it's gone. Those were the words that shattered my morning before I even understood what they meant. The call came just after sunrise on the 3rd anniversary of my wife, Sarah's death. I was standing in our bedroom, staring at the open jewelry box on the dresser. The velvet case sat exactly where I had left it, but the necklace inside was gone. Not just any necklace. Sarah's necklace. The gold heart pendant she had worn nearly every day for more than 30 years. The one thing I had kept after she passed away. Her clothes had been donated. Her books had gone to the library she loved. Most of her belongings had found new homes. But that necklace remained with me because it carried a piece of her I could never replace. I searched the room twice, then 3 times. I checked every drawer, every closet shelf, every jacket pocket. My hands shook harder with every passing minute. Somewhere downstairs, dishes clattered in the kitchen. My daughter Emma laughed while talking on the phone. Her boyfriend Tyler was watching television in the living room. My granddaughter Chloe was scrolling through videos at the breakfast table. Life continued normally for everyone except me. Before I tell you what happened next, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes family should mean loyalty, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. If stories about family secrets, betrayal, and unexpected justice speak to you, subscribe and join us for more. Because what I discovered that day changed everything I thought I knew about my family. I walked downstairs holding the empty jewelry box. Emma barely looked up from her phone. She was 26 now, old enough to understand the value of memories, or so I believed. Emma, I said carefully, have you seen your mother's necklace? She sighed as though I had interrupted something important. No idea. Tyler glanced away from the television for half a second before returning to the game. Chloe rolled her eyes. Grandpa, it's probably somewhere in your room. I tightened my grip on the box. I've looked everywhere. Emma finally looked at me. There was something strange in her expression. Not surprise. Not concern. Almost irritation. Why are you making such a big deal about it? My heart sank. Because it belonged to your mother. She exchanged a glance with Tyler. Then she said the words that would echo in my mind for years. I sold it. The room suddenly felt smaller. You what? I sold it, she repeated. Tyler and I needed money for our vacation. You said no when I asked for help, so I found another solution. For a moment, I honestly thought I had misunderstood her. Surely no daughter would sell the last piece of jewelry her deceased mother owned. Surely no daughter would enter her father's bedroom, open a private drawer, take a treasured keepsake, and exchange it for airline tickets and hotel reservations. Yet the calmness in her voice left no room for doubt. She wasn't confessing. She was defending her decision. Emma, my voice cracked. That necklace was your mother's. And she's gone, Dad. The words landed like a knife. It was just jewelry. Tyler nodded from the couch. Honestly, Richard, you're being too emotional about this. Too emotional. The phrase nearly made me laugh. My wife had been gone for 3 years. 3 years of empty mornings. 3 years of talking to photographs. 3 years of pretending I was fine when every room in the house reminded me of her absence. And now the one item that still connected me to her had been sold for a beach vacation. Chloe shrugged. Mom said it was worth almost $1,000. That's pretty good for an old necklace. I looked at the 3 of them and felt something inside me change. Not anger. Not yet. Something colder. Clearer. A realization I had been avoiding for a very long time. They did not see the necklace the way I did. They did not see Sarah's memory. They saw money, opportunity, convenience. I walked back upstairs without another word. Behind me, their conversation resumed as though nothing significant had happened. In my bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed holding the empty jewelry box. For nearly an hour, I stared at it. Then I opened my laptop and searched for every pawn shop within 50 miles. If that necklace was still out there, I would find it. I had no idea that a simple phone call later that afternoon would reveal a secret Sarah had hidden for decades. A secret so powerful that it would expose the truth about my daughter, my family, and the woman I thought I knew better than anyone else in the world. For the next 2 hours, I sat in my bedroom making phone calls. One pawn shop after another. Each conversation sounded almost identical. I described the necklace carefully. Gold chain. Accept pendant. Small engraving on the back that read, "Forever, Sarah." Most shops had never seen it. Some barely listened. Others promised to check and call me back. By noon, I had almost given up hope. Then the eighth call changed everything. "Sunrise Jewelry and Pawn," a woman answered. Her voice sounded tired but polite. I repeated the description again. There was a pause. Then another. "Hold on," she said. Papers shuffled in the background. "Sir, when did you say this necklace was sold?" My pulse quickened. "Yesterday, I think." More silence. Then her tone changed completely. "Are you Richard Bennett?" He said all plights. "Yes. Please don't hang up." The woman placed the phone down. I could hear muffled voices in the distance. A minute later, a different voice came on the line. An older woman. Emotional. Unsteady. "Mr. Bennett?" "Yes. My name is Margaret Collins. I own the shop. You have a necklace?" Her voice broke. "Yes. And I need to talk to you." Something in her tone immediately unsettled me. This was not a normal business conversation. "What happened?" I asked. "Sir, when we inspected the pendant, we discovered something hidden inside." My fingers tightened around the phone. "Hidden?" "There is a secret compartment." For several seconds, I could not speak. Sarah had worn that necklace almost every day for 32 years. I had bought it for her on our 10th wedding anniversary. Or at least I thought I had. Suddenly, I realized how little I actually knew about it. "A compartment?" I finally asked. "Yes." Margaret paused, and what we found inside made me cry. I stared out the bedroom window toward the backyard Sarah used to love. The roses she planted still bloomed every spring. The wind moved gently through the branches. Everything outside looked normal. Yet nothing felt normal anymore. What was inside? Margaret hesitated. "I'd rather show you in person." "Please." My voice came out sharper than intended. "Just tell me." Another long pause followed. A folded note. "Written by your wife." My heart nearly stopped. Sarah's handwriting. Sarah's words. Hidden inside a necklace for years. Maybe decades. "How old is the note?" I whispered. "I don't know." Margaret sounded emotional again. "But when I read the first few lines, I realized I needed to call you immediately." "What does it say?" Only part of it was visible without fully unfolding it. I did not want to damage it. She inhaled slowly. "But I saw enough." "Enough for what?" "Enough to know your wife left something important behind." I closed my eyes. Memories flooded through me. Sarah laughing in the kitchen. Sarah singing while gardening. Sarah sitting beside me during long road trips. We had been married 34 years. I thought we told each other everything. Yet somehow she had hidden a message inside a necklace without me ever knowing. "Can I come see it?" I asked. "Of course. Anytime today." Margaret gave me the address. Before ending the call, she said one final thing. "Mr. Bennett?" "Yes. I have owned this shop for 22 years. People sell family heirlooms every day. Most are forgotten within hours. But when I read your wife's note," her voice cracked. "I could tell this necklace was never supposed to be sold." After hanging up, I sat motionless for several minutes. Then I grabbed my keys and headed downstairs. Emma was at the kitchen counter scrolling through travel websites. Tyler sat nearby drinking coffee. Neither looked concerned. "I'm going out," I said. Emma glanced up briefly. "To get over the necklace?" "Histoire de hair." "To get it back." Her expression hardened immediately. "Dad, seriously?" "Seriously." Tyler laughed under his breath. "You're spending more money on that thing." I ignored him. Emma crossed her arms. "You know we're leaving for Hawaii next week, right?" The statement sounded less like information and more like a warning. "I know. And if you buy it back, we're not reimbursing you." I looked at my daughter and struggled to recognize the little girl Sarah had once carried on her shoulders. Somewhere along the way, compassion had been replaced by entitlement. Somewhere along the way, she had learned to measure everything by value instead of meaning. "Keep your money," I said quietly. Then I walked out the front door. The drive across town felt surreal. My mind replayed Margaret's words over and over. A hidden note. Sarah's handwriting. Something important left behind. By the time I pulled into the pawn shop parking lot, my heart was pounding. I had come hoping to recover a necklace. Instead, I was about to uncover a secret my wife had carried for years. And deep down, I sensed that whatever waited inside that tiny hidden compartment was about to change my life forever. Margaret Collins was waiting for me when I entered the shop. She looked to be in her late 50s, with silver-streaked hair and tired eyes that suggested she had not slept well the previous night. The moment she saw me, she stepped out from behind the counter and extended her hand. "Mr. Bennett." I nodded. "Thank you for calling." Her expression softened immediately. "I'm so sorry about your wife." The sympathy in her voice felt genuine. More genuine than anything I had heard from my own daughter in months. She led me toward a small office in the back of the shop. On the desk sat a velvet cloth. Resting on top was Sarah's necklace. My breath caught instantly. There it was, the familiar gold chain. The heart-shaped pendant worn smooth by decades of contact against her skin. Seeing it again felt like seeing an old friend. I reached for it carefully. "Take your time," Margaret said. My fingers traced the edges of the pendant. I remembered fastening it around Sarah's neck on our anniversary. I remembered how she touched it absent-mindedly whenever she was nervous. I remembered watching sunlight reflect off the gold during family vacations, birthday dinners, ordinary mornings. So many memories attached to one small object. "How did I never know?" I whispered. Margaret opened a drawer and removed a magnifying glass. "The compartment is almost invisible." She pointed toward a tiny seam hidden along the edge of the heart. Most people would never notice it. Using a small tool, she gently pressed a concealed latch. The pendant clicked open. I stared in amazement. 34 years. 34 years of marriage, and I had never discovered it. Inside rested a folded piece of paper no larger than a postage stamp. Margaret carefully placed it on the desk between us. "I stopped reading as soon as I realized what it was," she said. "I felt it belonged to you." My hands trembled as I unfolded the note. The handwriting hit me first. Sarah's unmistakable script. Elegant, careful, familiar. The sight alone nearly brought me to tears. Then I began reading. "Richard, if you're reading this, it means something unexpected has happened." My heart pounded. I continued. "There are things I never told you because I hoped you would never need to know them. If this note has been found, go to Valley Trust Bank. Safety Deposit Box 1174. The key is hidden where we shared our first dance." The world seemed to narrow around those words. Safety Deposit Box. Hidden key. A message prepared years in advance. "What is it?" Margaret asked softly. I handed her the note. She read it carefully. My goodness. Neither of us spoke for several moments. Sarah had left instructions. Not a goodbye letter. Not a sentimental message. Instructions. Deliberate. Planned. "She wanted you to find something," Margaret finally said. I nodded slowly. "Apparently. Do you know where the key is?" Then it hit me. Our first dance. Sarah and I had met at a small lakeside dance hall outside Tucson. Years later, when we bought our house, she insisted on keeping a wooden music box in the living room because it played the same song. The music box still sat exactly where she left it. My pulse quickened. "I think I do." Margaret smiled gently. "Then you should go." I reached for my wallet. "First, I need to buy this back." She shook her head immediately. "No." "What?" "The necklace belongs with you." "Margaret, please." Her eyes filled with tears. "I lost my husband 6 years ago. If someone sold the last thing he left me, I would hope a stranger would do the right thing." I stared at her in disbelief. "You paid for it, and now I'm giving it back. I can't accept that." She smiled. "Then think of it as a favor between two people who understand grief." For several seconds I could not speak. Finally, I reached across the desk and squeezed her hand. "Thank you. Just promise me one thing. Anything. When you find out what Sarah was protecting, come back and tell me." I slipped the necklace safely into my pocket. "I will." The drive home felt completely different from the drive there. Earlier, I had been angry, betrayed, heartbroken. Now another emotion had joined them. Curiosity. Sarah had never done anything without a reason. If she had hidden a message from me, there was a purpose behind it. And if she had gone to the trouble of creating a secret compartment, hiding a key, and renting a safety deposit box, then whatever waited inside must have been important. Very important. When I pulled into the driveway, Emma's car was gone. Tyler's truck remained parked near the garage. The house looked peaceful from the outside. Ordinary. Yet I knew something now that nobody else did. Sarah had left a trail, and somehow, years after her death, she was still trying to tell me something. I walked through the front door and headed straight for the living room. The old wooden music box sat exactly where it always had. Dust covered the lid. My heart hammered against my ribs as I lifted it carefully and turned it over. At first I saw nothing. Then my fingers found a small piece of tape hidden underneath. And attached to it was a tiny brass key. Sarah had known. Years ago, long before any of this happened, she had prepared for a day when I would need the truth. The question was no longer whether she had left me a secret. The question was why. For a long time, I simply stood there staring at the tiny brass key resting in my palm. The afternoon sunlight filtered through the living room windows, catching the worn metal and making it shine. Sarah had hidden it beneath the music box for years, maybe decades. Every time I dusted that shelf, every time I moved the box while cleaning, every time I wound the mechanism and listened to our song play through the room, the key had been sitting there, waiting patiently for the right moment. A strange feeling settled over me. It was as though Sarah was still guiding me, still protecting me, still one step ahead of everyone else. I slipped the key into my pocket and carefully folded her note. Before heading to the bank, I walked through the house once more. Not because I needed anything, because I needed to think. The house felt different now. Every object seemed to hold questions. Every memory felt connected to something larger. Had Sarah known this day would come? Had she somehow predicted what Emma would become? The thought felt impossible, yet the evidence sat in my pocket. By the time I reached Valley Trust Bank, my heart was pounding. The building stood downtown between two office towers, quiet and understated. Inside, everything smelled faintly of polished wood and fresh coffee. A young employee greeted me with a professional smile. "How may I help you today?" I placed Sarah's note on the counter. "I need access to a safety deposit box." 20 minutes later, after confirming my identity and reviewing documents related to Sarah's estate, a bank manager escorted me into the vault area. The woman introduced herself as Karen Mitchell. "Box 1174 has been inactive for several years," she explained while walking down a narrow corridor lined with hundreds of metal boxes. "In fact, I believe it has not been accessed since your wife visited." My chest tightened. Sarah had come here alone, planned all of this alone. Karen stopped in front of a row of boxes and inserted a master key. "You'll need yours." My fingers trembled as I slid the tiny brass key into the second lock. The mechanism clicked immediately. Together we opened the box and removed a long metal container. Karen guided me to a private room. "Take all the time you need, Mr. Bennett." Then she left. The door closed softly behind her. For several seconds, I simply stared at the container. This was it. The mystery Sarah had left behind. The secret she had protected all these years. Slowly, I lifted the lid. Inside were 3 items. A sealed envelope with my name written across the front. A leather-bound journal. And a smaller, wooden box secured with a ribbon. I immediately reached for the envelope. Sarah's handwriting covered the front. "Richard, open this first." My throat tightened. I carefully broke the seal and unfolded the letter inside. "My dearest Richard, if you have found this, it means the necklace is gone. I know that sounds strange, but trust me, if the necklace left our family, it would only happen because someone valued money more than memory." The words sent a chill through me. I continued reading. "I pray I am wrong, but if I am right, then what you're feeling right now is disappointment, maybe even heartbreak. Please do not blame yourself. Some people spend their lives learning the value of things. Others spend their lives learning the value of people. Sadly, not everyone learns both." My eyes burned. Sarah knew. Somehow she had known. Not specifically about Emma selling the necklace, but she had recognized something years ago that I refused to see. The letter continued. "Richard, I need you to be strong. The next items in this box will help you understand why I created this plan. They may also help you see certain people more clearly than you ever have before. Whatever happens, remember this. Kindness is not weakness. Generosity is not obligation. And love should never be used as a weapon against you." I lowered the letter slowly. Every sentence felt as though Sarah were sitting beside me, speaking directly into my ear. the wisdom, the clarity, the concern. Even after death, she was still trying to protect me. Then my attention shifted toward the journal. The leather cover looked worn, familiar. Suddenly I recognized it. Sarah had carried this journal for years. She often wrote in it late at night after everyone else had gone to sleep. Whenever I asked what she was writing, she smiled and said, "Just thoughts." I had never pressed further. Now I wished I had. Beside the journal sat the small wooden box tied with a faded blue ribbon. I reached for it carefully. It felt surprisingly heavy. Whatever was inside shifted slightly. My pulse quickened again. One secret had already revealed itself. But something told me the biggest revelation had not arrived yet. Somewhere inside this room, among Sarah's final gifts, waited the truth she had spent years preparing me to find. And deep down, I suspected that truth would forever change the way I looked at my daughter, my family, and the life I thought I understood. For nearly a minute, I sat motionless in the small bank room. Sarah's letter rested in my hands. The journal and wooden box remained unopened on the table. My heart felt heavy, but not with grief. With anticipation. Sarah had spent years preparing for this moment. Years creating a path that began with a hidden compartment inside a necklace and ended here, in front of a safety deposit box nobody knew existed. Slowly, I reached for the journal. The leather felt soft from years of use. The first page contained only a date. June 14th, 2014. Nearly 11 years ago. Beneath it, Sarah had written a single sentence. "If you're reading this, Richard, then I was right." My stomach tightened immediately. I turned the page. Entry after entry filled the journal. Observations, concerns, memories. At first they seemed ordinary. Notes about family dinners, birthdays, holidays. But as I continued reading, a pattern emerged. Sarah had been documenting Emma's behavior for years. Not out of anger, out of concern. One entry described Emma demanding money for a luxury apartment she could not afford. Another described her cutting off a friend who could no longer help her professionally. Another mentioned Emma refusing to visit her grandmother because there was nothing to gain from the trip. Each story seemed small by itself. Together, they painted a picture I had never allowed myself to see. Sarah had seen it. Years ago. "No," I whispered. My eyes moved to another entry. "Richard always finds excuses for her. He sees the little girl she used to be. I see the woman she is becoming." My chest tightened painfully. Because Sarah was right. I had spent years defending Emma. Every selfish decision had an explanation. Every cruel comment had an excuse. Every mistake became temporary in my mind. I wanted so badly to believe she would eventually mature that I ignored what was right in front of me. Then I reached an entry written less than a year before Sarah died. This one was longer than the others. Much longer. "Richard does not know this, but I have started moving money into a private account. Not because I want secrets between us. Because I am afraid. Afraid that if something happens to me, he will spend the rest of his life sacrificing himself for people who see him as a resource instead of a father." My hands began trembling. The next paragraph hit even harder. "Emma loves her father. I believe that. But somewhere along the way, she also learned to love what he provides. The two feelings have become tangled together. Unless she changes, she will eventually confuse entitlement with love." I closed my eyes. Every confrontation from the past 3 years replayed in my mind. Emma asking for money. Emma criticizing my decisions. Emma treating the house as though it already belonged to her. Emma selling the necklace. Sarah had seen it all coming. Not every detail, but the direction, the trajectory, the danger. Then I noticed a folded piece of paper tucked into the back cover of the journal. I carefully unfolded it. A bank statement. The balance displayed at the bottom made me stare. $47,000. Sarah had quietly saved nearly $50,000 over the course of 20 years. Small deposits, careful planning, patience, love transformed into preparation. Attached to the statement was another handwritten note. "Richard, this money belongs to you. Not Emma. Not anyone else. You spent your entire life taking care of everyone around you. I wanted something reserved for you alone. Promise me you will finally choose yourself." Tears filled my eyes. Sarah knew me better than anyone. She knew I would continue giving until there was nothing left. She knew guilt would keep me trapped. She knew exactly which words I would need to hear. I wiped my eyes and turned toward the final item on the table. The wooden box. Unlike everything else, it carried no labels. No instructions. No explanation. Only the faded blue ribbon wrapped around it. Carefully, I untied the knot. Inside rested dozens of envelopes. Every envelope had a date written across the front. Birthdays, graduations, future milestones. Most were addressed to Emma. Some were addressed to future grandchildren Sarah would never meet. My breath caught. Sarah had written letters for years she would never live to see. One envelope immediately stood out. On the front, in bold handwriting, were the words, "Open only if Emma disappoints you." My heart nearly stopped. I stared at it for several seconds before finally reaching for it. Whatever Sarah had written inside, she had considered important enough to separate from everything else. Important enough to leave instructions. Important enough to protect. Slowly, I broke the seal, and as I unfolded the letter inside, I realized I was about to read the most painful truth Sarah had ever left behind. My hands were shaking before I even unfolded the letter. Somehow, I already knew this one would be different. Every note Sarah had left behind carried wisdom, love, and preparation. But this envelope felt heavier, more personal, more painful. On the front, she had written only 7 words. Open only if Emma disappoints you. Slowly, I unfolded the pages inside. Richard, if you are reading this letter, then my greatest fear may have come true. Please understand something before you continue. This letter is not about blame. It is about truth. I paused and swallowed hard. Sarah's voice felt so alive on the page that I could almost hear her speaking. Years ago, I noticed something that worried me. Whenever Emma wanted something, she became incredibly kind. When she received it, the kindness often disappeared. At first, I told myself it was youth. Then I told myself it was immaturity. Then I told myself she would grow out of it. Eventually, I realized I was lying to myself. My chest tightened. I kept reading. Richard, you love deeply. That is one of the reasons I fell in love with you. But your greatest strength has always carried a hidden weakness. You believe love can solve every problem. Sometimes it can. Sometimes it cannot. Sometimes love without boundaries becomes permission. I lowered the page for a moment. The word struck with uncomfortable accuracy. Throughout our marriage, I had always been the one saying yes. Yes to helping relatives. Yes to lending money. Yes to fixing other people's mistakes. Yes to sacrificing my own needs. Sarah used to tease me about it gently. Now I realized she had been worried. Very worried. I continued reading. If Emma has disappointed you, please remember this. Disappointment is not failure. It is information. It tells you something important about reality. Do not ignore it. Do not explain it away. Do not pretend it means something else. See it clearly. My eyes filled with tears. That was exactly what I had done for years. Every warning sign had been softened by excuses. Every selfish act had been wrapped in explanations. I had confused hope with denial. The letter continued for several more pages. Sarah described moments I had forgotten. Times when Emma manipulated situations to get what she wanted. Times when she showed little empathy for others. Times when Sarah tried to guide her toward gratitude and accountability. Yet there was something remarkable about the letter. Despite all her concerns, Sarah never sounded angry, never bitter. Every sentence carried compassion. She loved Emma completely. She simply refused to ignore reality. Then I reached the final page. This page was shorter, only a few paragraphs, but they changed everything. Richard, if this letter has become necessary, there is one final thing you need to know. Inside this box is another envelope addressed to Emma. Please do not give it to her immediately. Only give it to her when she is finally ready to hear the truth. I looked back into the wooden box. Sure enough, beneath the stack of birthday letters rested a cream-colored envelope I had not noticed before. Emma's name was written across the front. Below it, Sarah had added a second note. For the day you finally understand what matters. My pulse quickened. I reached for the envelope but stopped myself. Sarah had left instructions. She wanted me to wait. I returned my attention to the letter in my hands. The final paragraph read, "If you are reading this, then life has probably been painful. I'm sorry for that. But please remember something I learned long ago. The people we love are not always the people we imagine them to be. Sometimes they are better. Sometimes they are worse. Real love begins when we stop loving the fantasy and start loving the truth. Whatever happens next, choose truth. Always choose truth. Love, Sarah." I sat there for a long time after finishing. The room was completely silent except for the faint hum of the building outside. Eventually, I gathered the letters and carefully placed everything back into the box. Everything except Emma's envelope. That one remained on the table. I stared at it for several minutes. Then something slipped out from beneath it. A folded document. I had not seen it before. Confused, I opened it. At first, I thought it was another bank statement. Then I noticed the heading. It was a legal document, prepared by an attorney, signed by Sarah 2 months before her death. My heart began racing again. The document outlined instructions regarding the private account Sarah had created. But there was something else, something unexpected. Attached to the final page was the name of a lawyer, Daniel Harper. Alongside his phone number, Sarah had written a note in the margin. "Richard, when the time comes, call Daniel. He knows the rest." I stared at the words in disbelief. The rest. Sarah had already revealed a hidden account, secret letters, and years of private concerns. What could possibly remain? Yet something deep inside me knew this mystery was not finished. Not even close. Somewhere beyond these letters, another piece of Sarah's plan still waited. And whatever Daniel Harper knew, it was important enough for Sarah to protect until exactly the right moment. The drive home from the bank felt longer than usual. Sarah's journal sat on the passenger seat beside me. The wooden box rested carefully on the floor. Emma's sealed envelope remained tucked inside my jacket pocket. And folded in the center console was the note with Daniel Harper's phone number. The rest. Those 2 words followed me all the way home. Sarah had always been thoughtful, organized, deliberate. If she told me Daniel knew the rest, then whatever remained was important enough to be protected until exactly this moment. The second I walked through the front door, I knew something was wrong. Voices echoed from the kitchen. Loud voices. Angry voices. Emma and Tyler were arguing. They stopped when they saw me. "Where have you been?" Emma asked immediately. Not concern. Not curiosity. Accusation. "Ow, that's not an answer." I set the wooden box on the dining room table. "It's enough of one." Tyler crossed his arms. "Emma says you're trying to buy back the necklace." I looked directly at him. "I already have." His expression darkened. Emma stared. "You spent that much money?" "Yes." "Unbelievable." I almost laughed. Unbelievable. That was the word she chose. Not relieved. Not happy. Not even embarrassed. Just upset that I had corrected her mistake. "Do you even understand why that necklace mattered?" I asked quietly. Emma sighed dramatically. "Dad, we've had this conversation." "No, we haven't." The room fell silent. "Because every time I try to explain, you treat it like a financial discussion instead of an emotional one." Emma rolled her eyes. The same gesture she had used since high school, whenever she wanted to dismiss something without addressing it. For the first time, I saw it exactly as Sarah had described. Not immaturity. Entitlement. The realization hurt. Yet strangely, it also brought clarity. "I'm tired," I said. "We'll talk later." Then I carried the box upstairs. That evening, after everyone else went to bed, I sat in Sarah's old reading chair and dialed Daniel Harper's number. The phone rang twice. Daniel Harper speaking. His voice sounded calm and professional. "Mr. Harper, my name is Richard Bennett." Silence. Then a slow exhale. "Richard?" He sounded unsurprised, almost as if he had been expecting this call for years. "Sarah told me you might contact me someday." My heart quickened. "Then you know why I'm calling." "I think I do." Another pause followed. "Did you find a necklace?" "Yes." "And the letters?" "Yes." "Then it's time." The phrase sent chills through me. Time for what? To tell you what Sarah asked me to protect. The next morning, I drove to Daniel's office downtown. He greeted me warmly and led me into a private conference room. Gray-haired and thoughtful, he looked more like a university professor than an attorney. After he sat down, he opened a locked cabinet and, removed a thick file. My stomach tightened. "Before we begin," Daniel said, "you need to understand something. Sarah loved Emma very much. I know. Everything she did was because of that love." He slid the file across the table. But she was also worried. Inside were documents spanning nearly 15 years. Letters, financial records, personal notes. Some were familiar. Others were completely new. Daniel pointed toward a specific section. 3 years before she became ill, Sarah revised her estate plans. I frowned. Why? Because she was concerned about how Emma handled money. I slowly turned the pages. Sarah had documented a pattern I had never fully acknowledged. Credit card debt, borrowed money never repaid, broken promises, financial irresponsibility, none of it catastrophic by itself. Together, however, it revealed something troubling. "She saw this years ago," I whispered. Daniel nodded. "Yes. Why didn't she tell me?" "She tried." The answer hit harder than expected, because deep down, I knew it was true. Sarah had raised concerns before. I simply hadn't listened carefully enough. Daniel opened another folder. "There's more." He handed me a sealed envelope. The handwriting immediately stopped my breath. Sarah's. My name covered the front. Open only after meeting Daniel. Slowly, I broke the seal. "Richard, if you are reading this, then Daniel has shown you the evidence. What comes next may be difficult. Please remember that truth is not cruelty. Sometimes truth is the kindest gift we can offer." I continued reading. Inside the final section of the file is a trust one created before my death. The trust contains everything I hoped would one day help Emma build a meaningful future. But there is a condition. She must first demonstrate responsibility, accountability, and genuine compassion for others. My eyes widened. A trust. Sarah had created a trust. Daniel watched quietly while I read. The amount listed inside nearly took my breath away. Over $200,000. Carefully invested and growing for years. Money Sarah had quietly built through savings, inheritance funds, and investments. Money intended for Emma, but only when she was ready. And suddenly, everything made sense. The hidden account, the letters, the warnings, the necklace. Sarah had never been trying to punish Emma. She had been trying to protect her from becoming the worst version of herself. And as I sat there staring at the documents, I realized something heartbreaking. The woman who had died 3 years ago understood our daughter better than I ever had. The question now was whether Emma would ever become the person Sarah believed she could still be. For the next several days, I could not stop thinking about the trust. $200,000. Sarah had quietly built a future for Emma while preparing safeguards against the very behaviors she feared might destroy her. The more I reflected on it, the more I admired her wisdom. She had managed to balance love and accountability in a way I never had. I had spent years protecting Emma from consequences. Sarah had spent years preparing Emma for them. The difference suddenly felt enormous. When I returned home that evening, Emma was sitting alone at the kitchen table. For once, her phone was not in her hand. She looked tired. The confident certainty she usually carried seemed diminished. "Can we talk?" she asked quietly. I studied her for a moment. "About what?" "Everything." The word hung between us. I sat down across from her. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then she surprised me. "Margaret called me." My eyebrows rose. "She did?" Emma nodded. "Yesterday." "What did she want?" Emma stared at the table. "She wanted to know why I sold the necklace." I remained silent. She told me what she found inside. My pulse quickened. "The note." "Yes." Emma swallowed hard. "She said my mother left messages behind because she loved us." Her voice trembled slightly, and all I could think about was how I sold that necklace without even opening the box it came in. For the first time since this entire ordeal began, I heard genuine regret. Not regret about being caught. Regret about the choice itself. The distinction mattered. "Dad," she said softly, "was I really that awful?" The question caught me off guard. I thought about Sarah's journal, the trust documents, the years of warning signs. Then I looked at my daughter. Not the selfish adult who sold a treasure keepsake. Not the demanding child I had enabled. Just a flawed human being finally confronting herself honestly. Sometimes, I answered truthfully. Emma closed her eyes. Tears appeared almost immediately. I think Mom would be disappointed in me. My chest tightened. Maybe. She nodded slowly. I would be disappointed in me, too. The conversation lasted nearly 2 hours. Longer than any meaningful conversation we had shared in years. There were no excuses. No arguments. No blame. For the first time, Emma listened more than she spoke. Eventually, I told her about the journal. Not every detail. Just enough. Sarah's concerns. Her hopes. Her fears. Emma cried quietly through most of it. Then I told her about the envelope addressed to her. The one Sarah instructed me to save until she was ready. Emma stared at me. Do you think I'm ready? I honestly did not know. But for the first time, I thought it might be possible. 2 days later, I handed her the envelope. She took it upstairs and spent nearly 3 hours alone in her room reading. When she finally came downstairs, her face was streaked with tears. She sat beside me on the couch and handed me the letter. Read the last page, she whispered. I hesitated before opening it. The final page contained words Sarah had written specifically for Emma. My beautiful daughter, if you are reading this, then life has probably forced you to look at yourself honestly. That can be painful, but it can also be the beginning of something wonderful. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone becomes selfish sometimes. Everyone loses their way. The question is not whether you fail. The question is what you do after you fail. My eyes blurred. I continued reading. Emma, I do not need you to be perfect. I never did. I only need you to be brave enough to tell yourself the truth. If you can do that, then you can become anyone. I love you. Always. Mom. By the time I finished, neither of us could speak. Sarah had somehow managed to deliver exactly the right message years after her death. Not condemnation. Not punishment. Hope. Emma spent the next several weeks changing in ways I never expected. Small changes at first. She canceled the luxury vacation. She sold several expensive items she no longer needed. She repaid money she had borrowed from relatives. She began volunteering at a local community center. Most importantly, she stopped expecting the world to revolve around her. The transformation was not immediate. Real growth never is. There were setbacks, difficult conversations, old habits that resurfaced occasionally. But the direction was unmistakable. One evening, nearly 3 months after finding the necklace, Emma approached me holding a small folder. What's this? I asked. She smiled nervously. Proof. Inside were receipts, repayment records, volunteer hours, recommendation letters, and personal goals she had written for herself. I looked up. Why are you showing me this? Her eyes filled with emotion. Because I want to become the person Mom believed I could be. For a moment, I could not speak. Then I thought about the trust, about Sarah's instructions, about accountability and compassion. And for the first time, I felt something I had not felt in years. Hope. Real hope. Not the blind hope that ignores reality. The kind built on effort, honesty, and change. Yet one final piece remained unresolved. The necklace itself. The object that started everything. The symbol of loss, betrayal, memory, and truth. And before this story could truly end, Emma needed to make one final choice. A choice that would determine whether Sarah's legacy became merely a lesson or the foundation of a new beginning for our family. The necklace sat in the center of the dining room table. For months, it had been more than a piece of jewelry. It had become a mirror reflecting every mistake, every regret, every truth our family had spent years avoiding. The gold heart-shaped pendant glowed softly beneath the evening light. I stared at it while memories drifted through my mind. Sarah wearing it on our wedding anniversary. Sarah touching it while reading on the porch. Sarah smiling as she danced with our granddaughter in the living room. Somehow, despite everything that had happened, the necklace had found its way home, just as she had planned. Emma entered the room carrying a small box. She looked different now, not transformed into a perfect person, something more realistic, more meaningful. She looked accountable, humble, present. Dad, she asked quietly. Yeah. She placed the box beside the necklace. I wanted to show you something. Inside were dozens of photographs. Some old, some recent. Pictures of Sarah through the years. Family vacations. Birthdays. Holidays. Moments I had forgotten. Moments Emma had collected from relatives over the past few months. I've been putting together a memory album, she said. For Mom. My throat tightened. Emma. She shook her head. I know it doesn't fix what I did. Tears filled her eyes. Nothing can. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she surprised me again. She picked up the necklace and held it carefully in both hands. I spent years thinking this was valuable because it was gold. Her voice trembled. Now I understand it was valuable because it carried her love. I felt tears gathering in my own eyes. Sarah would have loved hearing that. Not because Emma finally understood the necklace. Because she finally understood the difference between price and value. A week later, Daniel Harper called. The Trust Review Committee had completed its evaluation. After months of documented effort, financial responsibility, volunteer work, and personal growth, Emma had satisfied the conditions Sarah established years earlier. The trust would be released. When I told Emma, she cried. Not because of the money, because she finally understood why it had been protected. Mom wasn't testing me, she said quietly. She was teaching me, and she was right. Sarah had never created the trust to punish her daughter. She created it to give her daughter the opportunity to become the person she was capable of becoming. The money was never the reward. The growth was. Several months later, we gathered at the cemetery on what would have been Sarah's 63rd birthday. The sky was clear. The air was warm. Chloe came with us. So did Tyler. Even Margaret Collins attended after receiving an invitation from Emma. We stood together near Sarah's headstone surrounded by flowers. 3 generations connected by one woman's love. Emma stepped forward first. She placed the necklace box gently beside the flowers. Mom, she whispered, I'm sorry it took me so long. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But thank you for not giving up on me. Nobody spoke for several moments afterward. Then Chloe, now old enough to understand much more than before, asked a simple question. Grandma Sarah knew all this would happen? Emma smiled through her tears. Not exactly. Then how did she know what to write? Emma looked at me. I looked at the headstone. Then I answered. Because she understood people. The truth felt beautifully simple. Sarah understood people. She understood love. She understood weakness. She understood forgiveness. Most importantly, she understood that real change rarely comes from shame. It comes from truth. Later that evening, after everyone left, I sat alone on the back porch. The sun slowly disappeared below the horizon. Birds settled into the trees. The world felt peaceful. For the first time since Sarah died, the peace felt complete. My phone buzzed softly. A message from Emma. Thank you for not giving up on me either. I stared at the screen for several seconds before replying. Your mother never did. Neither could I. A few minutes later, I walked inside and opened the memory album Emma had created. The final page contained a photograph I had never seen before. Sarah sitting at the kitchen table years ago, smiling directly at the camera. Beneath the picture, Emma had added a quote from one of Sarah's letters. The greatest inheritance I can leave behind is not money. It is the ability to choose love when life gives you every reason not to. I closed the album slowly. Outside, the last light of day faded into evening. The necklace rested safely in its box. The trust had fulfilled its purpose. The secrets had been revealed. The wounds had begun to heal. And somehow, years after her death, Sarah had done one final thing for our family. She had brought us back to each other. Not through guilt, not through obligation, through truth. The same truth she hid inside a small gold pendant all those years ago. Looking back now, I realized the necklace was never the real treasure. The letters were not the treasure. The money was not the treasure. The treasure was the lesson Sarah left behind. People make mistakes, sometimes terrible ones. Families break. Trust shatters. Hearts ache. But when honesty meets accountability and accountability meets grace, healing becomes possible. Every year on Sarah's birthday, Emma now wears the necklace for one day. Then she returns it to its box. Not because she owns it, because she understands it. And every time I see that small gold heart resting against her chest, I smile. Because I know Sarah's greatest gift was never hidden inside the pendant. It was hidden inside the people she loved. The end.